Lord.
Hello, I'm James Daggar-Nickson. Welcome to Media Week. Coming up on the program today, Toby, Barbour, CEO of Starcom Australia, joins the program to take us through some of the week's media headlines. Plus, we'll have some analysis on all the major moves of the media companies on the mark with Evan Lucas, in particular, be touching on Network 10 as well as Fairfax and, of course, all the latest ratings. But first, Freeview Australia has given its Freeview Plus platform a makeover, offering a more simplified user experience for the catch-up service. Will join me at the desk today to talk us through it, Liz Ross, CEO of Freeview. Liz Ross, appreciate your time this afternoon.
It's a pleasure.
Look, before we get to Freeview Plus and what you've done with it, just for those who aren't aware, just give us a bit of background. Talk to us about Freeview.
Okay, so Freeview is an organisation and a platform, and our members are the major television networks, including the public broadcasters, 10 and 7, 9, ABC, SBS. So they're our members, and we work together to deliver television to Australian viewers in the best possible way, using technology and innovating. So new platforms, new devices and new services. And
funded by those members?
Indeed.
Can we talk about Freeview Plus? It's the catch-up offering, is that right?
Yes.
And what's happened to it?
Okay, so Freeview Plus launched in September 2014. To much fanfare, we've had fantastic growth. Now we're up at around 2.2 million receivers in the marketplace. Very, very strong growth. But like anything, we have to continue to innovate, and we, through research with consumers, we understood what Australian viewers want in a service, and basically it's an aggregated guide, but so much more. So the new Freeview Plus delivers a particular feature called My TV, where a viewer can find all live, all catch-up, personalised recommendations curated by the networks, browsed by genre, all in one screen. So press of the button and you're in, and you can browse all of that TV.
And is that something, the decisions taken in terms of the personalisation of it, I suppose, is that something that was driven by consumers? Because my understanding is the original Freeview Plus itself was quite innovative and quite heralded at the time.
Yes. Yeah, so personalisation is the next step, and we've kept it simple. We're not collecting user data, we're not using anybody's data. We're simply allowing for the service to pick up on the selections that a user makes in terms of what they watch, whether they set a favourite, etc., and it will then serve up programs that they may be interested from the same genre.
How is it different to the catch-up catch-up systems already offered by the free-to-airs?
Well, the big one is that you're actually not having to jump in and out of each individual catch-up service. You're seeing everything in one place. So if I turn on the TV and press the green button to go to Freeview Plus, in one screen I can see the best of catch-up from 5 services and all the live from more than 20 TV channels, and all the genre-based searching across all of those channels.
And how important to, I suppose, further growth is the quality of the content that's on offer, and how does it compare to similar sort of Freeview offerings in other markets offshore?
So in terms of the actual service itself, we've won world-based awards. We won Best Interactive User Interface in the television industry across the world for Freeview Plus, the previous version. We were the first in the world to deliver an aggregated service like this on this particular technology platform. So the technology is HbbTV, hybrid broadband broadcast TV. It's now in 25 countries around the world. So it's growing very, very rapidly because it is such a great technology platform. Because the viewer doesn't have to switch out of live, go into a smart hub to find catch-up. They can overlay their broadband service onto their live TV and be searching through broadband whilst their live TV is still on in the background. So
2.2 million at the moment. I mean, do you have sort of targeted ambitions in terms of market growth?
Well, we're in a very enviable position now in that 85% of all smart TVs are now Freeview Plus certified. So it's pretty hard to miss if you go into a retail store. even if you hadn't even heard of Freeview Plus, there's a big chance you'll end up with a receiver that delivers it. So as soon as you connect it to the internet, Freeview Plus will be available on that receiver.
Talk to us more broadly about the market. You know, plenty has been made of, I suppose, streaming services and so forth. I mean, Foxtel itself, of course, had made a recent announcement in that space. How competitive is that market, and how does that then drive you and, I suppose, the offering and the things like the interface and so forth that you bring to market?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the first thing is the market is extremely competitive, and the upside of all of that is Australians are watching more video than they ever watched before, but you're fragmenting across more services. But what we know is with any of these services, and free-to-air is no different, we have to continue to delight and surprise our viewers, and that's what we're out to achieve now. So as the Australian free-to-air industry is seen by the rest of the world as one of the most innovative in terms of technology platforms and the way that we're presenting television and making that choice across networks so much easier.
And does the offering of multi-platform, is that crucial as well? It's because Freeview is also on mobile versus with Freeview FV.
Yes. Yeah, so mobile is really important. You're aware, no doubt, that about 85% of Australians over, I guess, 12 or 14 have a smartphone, and particularly young people are the market that is the fastest growing for watching video on smartphones. And so it's important to the free-to-air industry to be relevant to young people as well as to middle-aged and older people. Mobile is a fantastic platform. So when we launched FV last November, we launched it on mobile and tablet across Android and iOS.
Can I ask how that platform is viewed? Is it seen as a way to, obviously for people to consume the content, but a way to push them back towards watching on television, or is it seen as a platform in itself that is perhaps going to usurp, big televisions as the way that people devour content?
That's another good question, because I think when you make content available across multiple platforms, you can bring viewers that perhaps are lapsed or light television viewers back into programs and catch up. That's why catch-up is such a wonderful way for consumers to stay in touch. So if I miss an episode, I don't have to give up on a sequential drama, for example. I can get back into it. If I'm out and about and I catch up on something on my mobile on the bus, I might come back to it next week on my TV set in my living room. Yes, so it is a way to get people back into TV and keep them loyal to TV.
Liz Ross, apologies. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
That's my pleasure.
Liz Ross, the CEO of Freeview. Well, as mentioned at the beginning of the show, plenty happening in the broader media space. Bidding wars, of course, continuing for both Fairfax Media and hopefully at least Network 10. Evan Lucas, independent analyst, has a wrap on all the latest.
Big story is still the tale of two cities that is the media space and free-to-air. I'll talk about Fairfax in a minute, but clearly you've got to still look at what's going on around 10 and what 10 is going to look like outside of this voluntary administration. There has been clearly some offers coming in. They sound very conditional and still sound like there is a long way to go to actually negotiate what the debt restructuring will be at 10 and what exactly and what assets could be spun out or remain. Also, what we'll look with regards to content and where content comes in. But continue to watch what goes on between Bruce Gordon and Lachlan Murdoch. They are clearly trying to work about how they can get around the reach rules, considering that's still not actually passed, and what they may actually bring to the party inside of it. So 10 is likely to stay off the market for the foreseeable future. And that also brings the question about whether or not it actually would come back under some form of new structure. From a personal point of view, I don't think it will, and I think that is also part of the likelihood of this is that shareholders are going to have to accept that this is a voluntary administration, and therefore if you do get some form of sense back in the investment, I think you're doing all right. To the other side, it's Fairfax, and Fairfax is also now starting to be a really interesting one on the back of the two major takeovers that are there. We've got a bid at 120 and we've got a bid at around 122 to 125, and the share price is sitting pretty much bang in the middle of that. Both private equity, and there's now more and more information about what private equity is looking for. Private equity doesn't get into things like this unless they can see an exit within at least 5 years and at least 10 to 20% upside in terms of their investment. That therefore shows you that they see some really good numbers inside Fairfax despite all the headline numbers. It also brings into Domain and what Domain could look like. Is it going to be spun out like current management has been suggesting, and how that would actually reach, and the kind of shareholder value that could be extracted on the back of it? I think Fairfax is the one to watch here. Do they actually get away from the bid, go into their own ideas, reject it, and therefore talk about how they can create shareholder value? Or does the deal go through? Either or, I think the most likely scenario is that Domain is the absolute sort of core part to what that means. And that's the next step. I think the corporate activity for the back half of the year will be Domain, and there'll be more and more idea around that being spun out. And I think that is the most interesting thing in the media space and something to watch over the next 6 months.
Evan Lucas there. Well, coming up on Media Week, Toby Barbour, CEO of Starcom Australia, joins me at the desk. We're going to have some analysis on this week's major media headlines. Stay with us.
We know you've always worked hard for your money. Isn't it time your money worked hard for you? Invest with La Trobe Financial, trusted by Australians for more than 60 years and judged Money Magazine's best mortgage fund 8 years in a row.
Fame's fickle. While some are celebrated, others go unrecognised. Take the traffic light, saved so many lives. But whose brainchild was it? Yeah, whoever thought of roasting coffee beans? The mobile phone, who was the inventor? What about Wi-Fi? Any ideas?
You don't have to be famous to be brilliant.
Skoda. Simply clever.
The world is full of hidden treasure, just waiting to be discovered. So look a little closer and see what others don't. Join Expedia Plus Rewards today and discover member pricing and more.
I could not find where my great-grandfather had originated from. That's when I did an ancestry DNA test. Amazingly, I solved my problem.
Discover the story only your DNA can tell. Order your Ancestry DNA kit today.
Thinking of selling your home and want to get the most for it? With Local Agent Finder, you can now compare agents in your area, and it's 100% free. The right agent makes a big difference, and now finding one is simple.
It's Audi season. The mid-year sales event is now on. Exceptional offers, including complimentary registration, stamp duty and CTP across a range of new Audi models.
If an ordinary worker takes money out of the till, then it's criminal theft. But if a boss deliberately underpays a worker, then it's not seen as a criminal offence. This Friday, we hear the union movement's radical pitch that wage theft should be treated as criminal theft, with executives to face jail time for deliberate underpayment of wages. Is this a case of using a sledgehammer to smash a walnut? Hear the arguments, cast your vote, and we'll let you know the results. That's Politics HQ on Sky News Live.
First Edition takes you across the nation and around the world. Be the first to know every morning from 5.
A look at this morning's top stories.
And breaking news coverage.
Sky News Live.
Brought to you by BMW, the 2017 First Edition presenting partner.
Welcome back to the program. Joining me at the desk today, Toby Barbour, CEO of Starcom Australia, to go through not only what Starcom Australia does, but some of the major headlines of the week across media. Toby, appreciate your time today.
Pleasure.
Let's talk about Starcom. Tell us a bit about it.
So Starcom is part of the Publicis Group. In Australia, we employ close to 1,000 people. We service over 300 clients, and we represent circa $4 billion in billings in the Australian marketplace. At Starcom, we're passionate about understanding the customer experience. We believe that consumers are changing faster than what businesses can keep up with today. And we know this through the Starcom Media Futures Report, where we found that actually marketers score themselves 61% higher on meeting customer expectations and 40% higher on engaging on their terms. So there's a gap. There's a big gap. There's an expectation gap, we call it. And our role at Starcom is to help our clients by understanding their customer, their brand, their category, close that gap and create value for them.
Has that gotten harder, understanding the customer for your clients? I mean, a lot of people talk about, you know, the increasingly fickle nature, if you like, of customers. Is that loyalty still there? While at the same time, a lot about, you know, forming relationships with your customers. I mean, is it hard?
I think most definitely it's much harder. I mean, we all talk about consumers have taken control of brands today in many ways. So we know that they're enabled by technology. And what we're interested in is we think data seems to be the main game, but can be very reactive and less predictive. So we're interested in understanding the desire lines of consumers and how that influences their behaviour and changes their consumer journey. And if we understand that, then we can create value back for our clients.
And, I mean, how would you describe the market at the moment as it relates here in Australia?
I think it's never been more interesting, as we're about to see in the news. Every day is interesting, challenging and exciting. If we look at spend, you know, that will be, you know, a low-digit number up, hopefully. There's some significant headwinds in different mediums, again, which we'll explore. But, you know, overall, I think, you know, the changing nature of this sector is what's most interesting, but also challenging for most brands.
Challenging for Starcom as well? I mean, what do you see some of the key challenges for the company?
Yeah, sure, I think it's challenging. Sometimes, you know, media, of course, is both the disruptor and the disrupted at one time. So I think most important today is that you have momentum. And the most challenging thing for us today is to remove any friction in the solution we provide for our clients. And that's what we're most focused on. We'll talk about a platform, agile business solution, which means we can create the best solution for our clients and access talent as a value exchange network, any product, any solution, any specialist craft, technology, and deploy that into our clients' business in a simple and easy way.
And in terms of clients, I mean, do you get the sense that, you know, media spend levels remaining the same? Are you expecting sort of an uptick, or are they starting to pair off?
I think it's very much dependent on the category you're in today. You know, if we think about perhaps grocery, and you know, you can't get away from the A word with Amazon every day, but the recent acquisition of Whole Foods, of course, there's some significant headwinds there. So depending on what your customer life cycle is, what category and vertical you're in, I think is dictating the spend. If I think about Samsung today as one of our clients, with the launch of the recent S8, you know, they're experiencing great momentum in sales growth, and that's a good story.
One of the negative stories, and we've spoken about it over the past few weeks, is it's not really a negative story, it depends which way you come at it. But the idea of brand safety, obviously earlier in the year there had been some concerns about where branding and content had been placed online. Your thoughts around the focus on image and safety around that brand?
Obviously it's inherently important. And of course we understand that clients want confidence around the return on their spend and the right message. But it's also incredibly difficult to police. And so, you know, Google in this instance has actually gone back and reviewed their algorithms and put better controls in place. But overall, I think, unfortunately, it is unhealthy for the industry. It creates a confidence issue.
Can we get to some of the news of the week? And as seems to dominate so often, media reform. The Greens offering a media law deal. Government, though, wanting to push ahead with the Senate vote. Your thoughts on the reform, the need for reform, and what, if any, likely impact, should they get through, the reforms will actually have in terms of the marketplace?
I think the reforms package has never been more important. Fundamentally, if we think about it, we have a 20th century media ownership model servicing a 21st century consumer and client need, which we know is changing faster than any of us can keep up with. So how does it make sense? And it's putting our industry and then fundamentally our clients at a disadvantage. We need to solve it, and we need to solve it fast.
And is that what you hear more broadly from you know, your own peers, the need for that reform?
Most definitely, because if we think about where we started our conversation, understanding the customer experience, you know, we need the right solution and the right ability to work with our media and technology partners to engage that consumer, you know, with the right content in the right place.
One of the big proponents of reform has been Greg Highwood, of course, Fairfax Media CEO. Fairfax in focus today. Viewers would have been well aware, no doubt, of John Singleton, Mark Carnegie sort of expressing interest in Macquarie Media, the stake they don't already own. It comes at a time as well with continued challenges for newspaper, you know, a bit of a due diligence happening amongst a couple of private equity firms for Fairfax Media. Your thought I suppose looking at the sector itself, newspapers when it comes from a media buy, media spend perspective.
It's interesting, isn't it? When we think about media reform, you can't help think about where Fairfax might be as an organisation today if that was different. The interesting thing about Fairfax is the Sydney Morning Herald, if we take that as a title or a masthead, it actually still has the highest reach of audience at 5.2 million Australians across print and digital, so across platform. So it's a great brand. It's a strong brand. So, you know, personally, I hope this process of due diligence with TPG or any other VC is quick and media reform goes through and we can move on and see the right solution.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, of course, mass redundancies or staff, mass farewells, I should say, both The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, two of those key mastheads. Let's move on to television, if we can. Seven's abandoned plans to produce controversial telemovie on Warney. Oh, it's a bit disappointing, isn't it?
It is disappointing. I was really looking forward to that one.
So would I.
Yeah. Look, I think it shows how fickle we are as an audience. You know, just last year, we really enjoyed Molly.
Yeah.
Great story and characterisation of a great Aussie character, and that rated really well. Fast forward 12 months, and Hogue's, Paul Hogan, not so well. Not the same success story. You know, and I think what's interesting is I'm actually watching Hogue's on the plane on Q streaming at the moment, and I'm enjoying it, but I didn't watch it at the time when they broadcast it. So, you know, I think it shows the fragmentation and fickleness of the audience.
Do you think the broadcasters will come back to the biopics? You mentioned Molly. I mean, there've been some hugely successful ones. I'm not sure how Bond did, perhaps not all that well, but there've been some successful ones in the past.
I think the challenge for the networks at the moment is to find the right space and the right telemovie or drama that needs to be able to dominate in peak in that space in its own right.
Yeah.
At the moment, they're trying to trail in off the latest reality program, and again, the audience is just fragmenting quickly after that. So, you know, I'd like to think they continue. I think there is a success story and formula there, but I think there's you know, a watching brief.
We just had Liz Ross on, the CEO of Freeview, before. A thought from you on more broadly, when you spoke about newspapers, what about the free-to-airs when it comes to, I suppose, the level of media spend, the level of interest from your clients?
I think we've seen through content like sport last night with the State of Origin, there is still a huge demand there.
Yeah.
You know, yes, there's more marquee properties which you need to get right, and perhaps there's some peaks and troughs around that. But there's no doubt free-to-air is incredibly important. The return on investment is proven. The measurement is consistent and standard and industry accepted. And I think what's most important is we just get the right mix of spend across the right channel as a connected experience.
Let's talk sport on television. Fox Sports will be showing the Women's World Cup, the ICC Women's World Cup. Every ball. Australia, of course, if you didn't know, are reigning champs. That's great news. The rise of women's sport continuing in Australia.
Wonderful, isn't it? Yeah. On the back of the Aussie Sevens team, which of course won gold, which was fantastic. So look, I think it's wonderful news. And of course, we also saw the recent netball grand final.
Yep.
Which rated incredibly well. Great story, great success story. So I think women's sport on free-to-air is wonderful, and I think, again, it shows the importance of sport as content.
Including, I suppose, and get your thoughts, ESPN picking up the rights to the US Open tennis, sharing the finals with SBS that had previously been, I understand, on Fox Sports.
That's right. So coming back to the value of sport, the value of content, the value of that audience. And it's probably one of the one genres of content now where you can have that confidence that you are going to command that eyeball. So last night with the State of Origin, you know, it reached nearly 3.5 million Australians, you know, metro audience of 2.4, slightly down on game one. So where was the New South Wales belief? Slightly down on game one, but still a very strong, good audience. So that's, you know, if you're thinking about your return on spend and your confidence, you know, free-to-air networks, sporting content is a good story.
Sets it up beautifully with a thought for Game 3 as well, a live one. Look, let's get to, you mentioned some of the ratings there for State of Origin. Let's get to the official ratings. We'll kick off with the free-to-air ratings. Began week 24. Once again, backing up last week's #1 rating, True Story on Channel 9, Hamish and Andy. House Rules, 9 News, 7 News, House Rules again. Coming up, I suppose, that #1 new shows, you know, new. I mean, it's not really a genre we've seen before, but the idea of, I suppose, taking a little bit of a risk on Channel 9 and it paying off. Good to see, I would have thought.
Yeah, great to see, and that's the challenge, of course, in terms of the investment of local content and production. But what's interesting with the networks today is how they're getting so much smarter in terms of how they're extending the life cycle of that content and exporting that content into the other markets around the world. And I think that's the main game for them.
It Married at Sight just seemed to go on and on and on earlier this year.
Yes, it did.
But it killed it in the ratings. Let's move on. We'll go to subscription television ratings. We'll kick off with sport. The AFL taking out top spot. It's always a jostle between the AFL and the NRL. And I suppose, as you were alluding to, goes to the point of the importance of sport, be it subscription or free-to-air television.
I think we're just also passionate about our favourite sport, whether it's AFL or NRL or unfortunately for me, the rugby right now. But
don't get me started.
We will not go there.
Please.
We're not ready. But I think we all love that sporting moment. It's still a great part of our culture.
Absolutely. And here is subscription television week 24 non-sport ratings. Grand Designs taking out top spot. Wentworth. Some local drama, which is always good to see. NCIS. Jason Bourne, the old movie, getting in, and The Simpsons. Reality TV, Grand Design's getting... It's sort of a take on reality TV, but lifestyle.
It's a proven winner. It's a great program. I think everyone loves it. And if we think about, you know, whilst it's getting less and less accessible, but the great Aussie dream of the Australian home, we love to create the resort in the home. We love to buy our appliances. We love to see how people are renovating. It's a good story.
Good deed. Look, Toby Barbour, appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
CEO of Starcom Australia. That is it for Media Week for this week. Thanks very much for watching.